Welcome to video 3. This video comprises of 3 main sections. Firstly, we need to do some preparatory work with our payroll data using the old version of the software. Next, we jump to video 4, where we will install the new version of the software for the new tax year. Finally, there are a number of steps that we need to go through with our new software to 1. Reorganise our data, 2. Print off the statutory documents, 3. Submit returns to HMRC, and 4. Finally start the new tax year. So, let's get started and look at the first section where we will check our data using the old software.
Hi, my name's Ben Butler and I'm going to walk you through the year-end check routines. Now, this first part we do in the old 4.7 software. So if we launch our old 4.7 payroll, and then you need to log into your live data file. I'm actually using a demo data file here. Now, before we go any further with the year end, it's necessary for you to process the pay for the final pay periods up to the year ending 5th of April 2012. You need to take a backup of your data file at this point and call this backup prior to period end and keep it in your backup folder. Next, you need to run the period ends for the final pay periods, month 12 and week 52, week 53, but very important, do not run the update nominal or the statutory return. Print off all your routine reports and, if required, the P11 summaries, and then take another backup of your data file at this point, and you need to entitle this backup post period end and place that in your backup folder. Next up, we're actually going to run the check data routines. Now, in order to do this, you have to go to your file menu and then down to utilities, which will then install the utility menu on your top menu bar up here. If you then click on utilities and then go down to where it says check data file, this gives you a warning message. It's important that you do not run this routine across a network. It can cause data corruptions, so your data file should be local to the installation of payroll that you're running this on. So if not, stop at this point and go and move the data file and then come back to here. Elsewise, we can continue and click yes. It gives us another warning message telling us it can take a varying amount of time depending on how big the data file is. Are we sure we want to continue? We do have a backup, don't we? And are we really sure we want to continue? And now what we need to do is we need to select the tables down the left hand side of this window. Now, we could simply scroll and select them with the mouse like this, or it is actually easier to use the Control A key combination on your keyboard to simply select all of the tables. We then select the check data radio button here and then click start to run the routine. Now, this will whiz through our data file and it will check all of the tables within the database and make sure that they're all good. And in this log window, if any errors get reported, at this point you should stop and ring Atlas support and they will guide you through what to do next. We can see here that I've got a nice clean log report, so we can close the log window and we can also close this window. And next up, we need to take another backup and we will call this backup post check data and store that in your backup folder. That concludes the first part of this process, and I'll pass you back to Lara.
And that completes the first section. We are now ready to install the new software. Now you should refer to video 4 and then come back to this point. And welcome back. Next up, we need to log onto the software and our data file. This is your final and absolute final warning. You definitely have taken a backup of your year-end data, haven't you? If not, stop right now and go and take one. Excellent. Moving on. What we need to do now is reorganize this data file, so let's get started.
Okay, we have successfully installed the new software now in video 4, and next up we need to launch the new 4.80a version of the Payroll. And we need to change data file to the data file that we were using in step 1 of this video. Now, for me, this is the demo data file in the data subdirectory. You should navigate to where your data file is stored on your system. As soon as we log in, we're going to get this warning message that tells us that the data file is not up to date with the software. This is to be expected. So what we need to do next is we need to go back to our Utilities menu from File, Utilities, and then here on the Utilities menu we need to go to Reorganize Data. This tells us that we're about to make the data file compatible with this version of Payroll, and it may take a long time depending on how big the data file is. It asks us whether we have a backup. We took one before in step 1, so we're good to continue. And now it's reorganising the file. My data file is quite small, so that's completed quite quickly, and we've got this message telling us that the reorganisation is completed. Now, it's possible that you have multiple data files. Now, if this is the case, on the Utilities menu you have Reorganize Multiple Data Files. Now, this option brings up a window here which lists all the other data files that are in the same directory as the one you're currently connected to. You can toggle these yes, no in the normal way the Access software works, and when you're happy you can go ahead and click the tick, and this will enable you to reorganize multiple files in one hit. Now, the messages that you get will be the same as the ones that we've just been through with a single data file. However, there is one additional point that you should note. You may get a message that you have an invalid national insurance number prefix in your data file, or the tax code suffixes AH and NI prefixes NC, NK, NO, ZZ and XX and QQ are no longer valid. This gives you the opportunity to return to the employee records and amend them prior to doing the actual year-end procedure. So, we've now reorganised the data file, and what we should do is we should take another backup at this point, and we should call this backup year-end backups 2011-12 and before year-end. Okay, that completes step 2, and back to Lara.
Well, hopefully that went well. Now we need to print off our statutory returns and print our year-end reports, so let's go do some printing.
Okay, we've reached step 3 of the process, and we're now ready to print our statutory returns and update the nominal. In order to do this, you go to period end and then down to statutory return. Now, if we simply run a statutory return off to screen, it will not update. So the first thing we need to ensure is that we have the printer option selected. Now, some companies will qualify for the NIC holiday scheme, which is available to certain new businesses starting up in specific areas since September 2010. If this applies to you, you need to enter the correct amount in this field. However, for the rest of us, we simply go ahead and click the green tick. We're going to produce the BACS export file for the payment to HMRC, and then it will ask us if we wish to update the statutory return, which we say yes, and you can see that we now have today's date in this field. Next up, for those of us using the link to nominal, we need to update the nominal. So, what we need to do is go back to period end and then select update nominal, which will bring up this screen here, and then we can specify the reference and the period in which we would like our journal to post into. So when we're happy, we go ahead and we click the tick, and then we will get some message dialogues, and once they have completed, we will have updated to the nominal. The next thing we need to look at is our stationery format. So we need to go to System Control and down to Defaults and Documents. Now you need to drill down on this arrow here next to Stationery Options, and then you need to select the P60 and the P35 stationery as appropriate. Now, printers can be a bit quirky, so what you can do is you can set top and left margins to get these reports to work with your printers. And this button here will allow you to do a test print. So we're going to do a test P60 print onto laser A4. It asks us if we've got the correct stationery in the printer, and it then goes ahead and does the test print. So, next up, we need to actually do our return. So if we go back to period end and then go down to year end, we can select the P60 report. Now we could click here, which would bring up a search box for specific individual employees by pay frequency, code, name, department. We can search in various ways, or we can simply run it for everyone. So we click the tick. It asks us if we have the right paper, whether we have set A4 portrait from the page setup, whether we want to exclude levers or not, which we should click no to, and whether we want to include employees that don't require a P14, let's click no to that as well. And that has now sent our P60 print off to the printer. That concludes step 3, and I hand you back to Lara.
Now that you've got your hot off the press reports, we are ready to submit our end of year returns to HMRC. This will be done electronically.